When I was first getting started making bread, I didn't know where to start with scoring my loaves. While I'm still no expert, I thought I'd put together a video to show some basic techniques that I've learned so far. But first, let's take a step back and look at two different types of scores and the very different reasons you'd want to use each one. The first type is the artistic score, whose primary purpose is to decorate the loaf. You can score patterns, objects, or even words into the loaf, but here we're just trying to show an example of a simple wheat pattern. When you bake the loaf, the oven spring causes it to expand out in all directions. With the short slashes of the artistic scores, it stretches out just enough to make the image more pronounced, but it doesn't always give the bread enough room to grow, and that's when blowouts can happen. That's where the second type of score comes in, expansion scores. Expansion scores allow the loaf to expand easily in a planned way to avoid blowouts and accentuate the beauty of the final loaf. By combining artistic scores with expansion scores, you can find the balance of form and function that matches your unique style. But now let's get back to the real loaves and show you a few different ways to apply these principles. Artistic scoring is further accentuated by contrasting colors. That's why the first step is usually to dust with rice flour. The next decision is what to score with. It could be as simple as a razor blade, a basic hobby knife, or a specialized bread blade called a lahm, which usually has a curved blade to allow you to achieve pronounced ears. So let's start on our first boule. For this one, we'll do a box top with the same wheat pattern from the earlier example. Now that our artistic scoring is done, it's time to do a box for the expansion scoring. Make sure the scores for your box are slightly deeper than the wheat pattern, and that each line connects with the next to allow for a uniform expansion. So that's our first boule done, and now we're on to the second. For this one, we're going to do a simple lopsided half moon expansion score. The first step is still the same though, so we'll apply our 50-50 mix of rice flour to all-purpose flour to the loaf. For the artistic scoring, we'll just repeat the same wheat pattern. As soon as we're done with that, we move on to our expansion score. Simply score in a half moon pattern all the way across the loaf to give it an easy spot where it can expand as much as it needs to. And we're done with the second and on to the third. Again, we start with a dusting of rice flour. Now for this loaf, we'll do a crosshatch pattern, which is actually a bit of a gray area because the scores are all the same, and they serve as both artistic and expansion scores. For this pattern, it's simply a matter of scoring intersecting lines deep enough so that they have a shot at staying pronounced in the final loaf. That one's nice and simple, which is why I barely had time to explain it before we're done and on to the final loaf. I'll make up some time by not having to explain the dusting part again, and we're straight into the scoring. We start with pretty deep expansion scores in a simple cross pattern. This is a great one to use if you think your loaf is a bit underproofed because it'll allow for a huge controlled expansion. The artistic scores on this one are rather secondary, so we'll just do some basic patterns to ensure the resulting loaf isn't too boring. So now all that's left to do is bake the loaves. If possible, you should really bake each loaf as soon as you're done with the scoring so the loaf doesn't have a chance to flatten out too much. And here we see the final product. There are lessons that can be learned on each loaf. The first one isn't bad, but you can see that the scores for the center of the wheat was a bit too deep and expanded more than we would have liked. The same can be said of the second one, and the artistic scores could have been tidier in general as well. On the third one, we see that the cross pattern was uneven, so when it expanded, it did so in a very uneven way. And on the last crosshatch loaf, the simplicity of the pattern really requires us to be even more precise with the lines, otherwise you get the unevenness you see here. Overall, these are far from my best, but hopefully they serve to help you at least a little bit if this side of bread making is a bit new to you. I'm brand new to YouTube, so if you like this, please let me know by giving me a like or a subscribe, and come check me out over on Instagram on Loaf Hacker. Thanks very much and hope to see you again soon.